Hi, I'm Robin Shooter and I'm the founder of Empower Total Health. And today I want to talk to you about some relatively recently published research about the hazards of drinking milk. Now, if you're like most Australian adults, you probably think that you don't drink much milk. That's what my clients say when I ask them about their dairy product consumption. They will say, I really don't drink milk. I might just have a little bit in my cereal and a splash of it in my coffee. But consumption data that have been gathered by the dairy industry, which obviously wants to know how much dairy products the average Australian is consuming, tell a very different tale. Annual fluid milk consumption, so that's milk drinking across all categories, full cream milk, skim milk, reduced fat, is about 105 litres per person as of the latest figures, which were 2015 to 2016. Which equates to just under 300 mils per day. The dairy industry is very pleased to announce that that's quite high by international standards. So compared to other countries where the comparison would be valid, our average milk consumption is actually quite high. The main driver of that milk consumption, and this is again according to the dairy industry, is, quote, the relentless expansion of the coffee culture in Australia during the last decade. So all of that milk is going into the lattes and the mochas and all of these fancy milk beverages. So how good an idea is it for Australians to be guzzling down this much milk? There have been many health claims made for dairy products, largely of course by the dairy industry. And over the last couple of decades, pretty much all of them have been debunked. So, for example, dairy product intake does not reduce the risk of bone fractures. There are multiple meta-analyses where you combine data from various different studies into one pool of data to analyse. And all of these meta-analyses show that there's no benefit of dairy products for bone health when it comes to measures that really matter to people, which is how likely are you to have a fracture, especially the really nasty ones like hip fractures. Some studies even indicate that the more dairy products you eat, the higher your risk of fracture. Dairy products do not assist with long-term weight loss, and this shouldn't really be surprising when you think about what dairy products are for, which is taking a calf that weighs maybe 40 kilos at birth and turning it into an 800 kilo animal within a couple of years. Dairy products are also not responsible for the blood pressure lowering effects of the so-called DASH diet, the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Again, contrary to the dairy industry's claims that dairy makes the difference, it turns out that it's fruit and vegetable consumption which is responsible for lowering blood pressure in the DASH diet, and dairy products really don't have any effect at all. And in fact, if you compare the blood pressure of vegans who don't eat any dairy to lacto-vegetarians who do, the lacto-vegetarians actually have higher blood pressure than the vegans. So it looks like dairy is making the difference in the wrong direction in plant-based diets. On top of all of that, dairy product intake is very strongly linked to getting prostate cancer, so an increased risk of prostate cancer. And drinking whole milk in particular raises the risk of dying of prostate cancer, so having more aggressive forms of it that will ultimately end your life. And full-fat dairy products raise the risk of breast cancer in women as well. And if after all that you're still keen on dairy, here's the latest research. A recently published study on over 98,000 Swedish women and over 45,000 Swedish men whose dietary habits and disease risks have been systematically tracked for anywhere up to 30 years in the longest running cohort of women. And this found that drinking more milk was associated with a higher risk of death. The researchers reported that in women, death rates were already increased at just 1 to 2 glasses of milk per day, and their measure for a glass is 200 mils. So this average intake of milk in Australia of just under 300 mils actually fits within that range of 1 to 2 glasses of milk a day that were found to raise mortality risks in women. The Swedish researchers have speculated that this higher mortality risk in people who are drinking more milk may be due to the lactose or milk sugar. When we digest lactose, it's broken down by our digestive processes into two simple sugars, which is glucose, which we simply burn for fuel, and galactose. And galactose has been shown in animal studies to induce oxidative stress, it's like cellular rust, and inflammation. And these processes accelerate the aging process. Now, the same same team of researchers who just published this research on milk and mortality, in a previous study found that humans who drink more milk have higher levels of two separate markers of oxidative stress and inflammation in their urine. And these markers are called 8-iso-PGF2 alpha and interleukin 6. And if you have a look at the article accompanying this video, you'll be able to see the graphs showing that as milk consumption goes up, so do the levels of these markers. Now, lactose intake has also been linked with an increased risk of developing pancreatic cancer, which is quite rightly one of the most feared cancer types out there, because less than 7% of people who are diagnosed with it will still be alive up 5 years after diagnosis. That's a pretty fatal cancer. If that's not enough to make you want to quit dairy, then there's also the ethical and environmental aspects of it. Bernard E. Rollin, who's a professor of animal sciences at Colorado State University, has said that the dairy industry is one of the most egregious abusers of animal welfare among all of agriculture, and that the dairy industry is acknowledged to be one of the most ecologically harmful human activities. It's a major contributor to land degradation, deforestation, water stress, pollution, and loss of biodiversity. Now, fortunately, these days there are so many dairy alternatives, and you're sure to find one that you like. There's, of course, a huge range of plant milks. My favourites would be the minimally processed soy milks made from whole soybeans, not soy protein isolates, products like Bon Soy. Oat milk is great in beverages. It's great in your cup of tea. Or coffee, and of course the better brands of almond milks, the ones with the shorter ingredient list, are generally the healthier ones. In terms of yogurt, I make my own soy yogurt using Bon Soy and a bit of non-dairy yogurt culture, which I buy from Green Living Australia. The links to all of this are again in the article accompanying this video. And those are much healthier than either coconut milk or coconut yogurt, which is really quite dreadfully high in saturated fat and not for anything other than occasional use. So I hope you found this interesting and valuable. Please do like it, share it with your friends, and I'll catch up with you with another health topic next week. Bye for now.